What's going on, everyone? In today's episode, I'm going to share with you a game-changing way of planting your tomatoes that we've been using in our garden for so many years. Absolutely love it. And once you try it, you're never going to plant tomatoes any other way again. Let's go. So you might be the type of person, when you plant tomatoes, you simply dig yourself a hole, take it, pop it in the soil, backfill, and call it good. Well, you could do one step better because tomato plants are a vine. And so if you've been planting tomatoes for any length of time, you've probably heard someone say, bury it deep. Well, why do you bury it deep? Well, if you've buried it deep, you know why. But if you've never buried them deep, let me explain. These tomato plants have these fuzzy stems that go all the way up the plant. Everything that you see as a little hair is a potential root fiber. And that root fiber will essentially help to stabilize the plant, help to go find more nutrients and water, leading to a stronger, healthier plant. So if you bury it deeply, no longer is this the only root system. Now you have this much root system or this much root system, and that leads to a very strong, healthy plant that's going to be more disease resistant, more drought tolerant, and it's going to produce a ton more fruit because of the fact it's able to get that many more nutrients, that much more water, and that equals a whole lot more fruit the plant can sustain. So planting it deep is something we've always advocated. But there's been a way that we've planted some of our tomatoes, particularly our taller ones, our more lanky ones like this, that is actually one step better, and it allows us to actually take advantage of all this amazing stem that we have here and really get us a nice, tall, huge, healthy plant at the end of the season. And that requires us to take off all these leaves. All right, so when it comes to planting tomatoes, you probably have just taken the plant out of the pot, dug yourself a hole, and thrown it in. And that's gonna be okay. You're still gonna get a very healthy, happy tomato plant by the end of the season, especially if your soil is nice and rich, nice and fertile, nice and crumbly, and hold on to lots of water to allow for the plant to take up those nutrients and grow. You're gonna have a very healthy, happy plant. So if you just take it and plant it, that's what a lot of people stop at. Next, if you've heard someone say, bury it deep. Burying it deep is a term that we use with tomato plants because tomato plants are a vine and they will set down roots all along the stem. I know you've heard that before. At least if you've been planting tomatoes for any length of time, I know you've heard that. And so basically what people will say is remove the leaves. Remove the leaves so you can plant it deep. You don't want to bury leaves because if you bury leaves, that can actually encourage things like disease, like tomato blight. So you want to remove those leaves and then you're going to bury it deep. So the deeper you can go and the more stem you can bury, the healthier and happier that plant is going to be because all of these root fibers eventually are going to form roots. And when they form roots, those roots are going to go out, they're going to find water, they're going to find nutrients, allowing you to have a bigger, healthier plant that not only is more disease resistant, not only is it going to be more drought tolerant. When it gets dry, that water that's down deep in the soil, if you have the right type of soil, there's more water down in the soil that's actually going to allow your plant to not dry out when it gets dry, which is going to cut down on how much you have to water, and it's going to reduce stress, and overall, it's going to help your plants to hold more fruit. So burying it deep is what a lot of people recommend. And again, that's simply just taking off those leaves and burying it as deep as possible. We're going to take this, and we're going to bury it. Look at that. Look how much we just buried that. So we just went up about probably 30, 40% on that plant, just like that. Now, here's where our method comes in. Now, it's not our method. We haven't invented this method, but we've used it with amazing success, particularly with tall, lanky plants like what I've got here. And this method is game-changing. So you take yourself a nice, tall, lanky plant like this. It's super healthy. This is an Ace 55. It's love and life. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna dig a trench. Now, this is awesome. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start over here next to this tomato plant, and we're going to dig ourselves a trench. Now we want this tomato plant, because we're spacing it out, we want this tomato plant to be about 2 feet away from the other plant. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take that trench and we're gonna put it right about here, because this trench is going to hold our whole tomato plant. When you guys see this, you guys are gonna freak out. This is great. This is the best way to plant a tomato plant that's tall and lanky like this because you're gonna maximize all of that amazing stem length. Now we're gonna take it out of the pot and we're gonna take the tag out because that's gonna get buried. What we're gonna do is we're going to set it down like this. We're gonna slowly bend this top up. You don't wanna bend it too hard, otherwise it's gonna break. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take this and we're gonna bury back the plant just like this, slowly bending, not too harsh, otherwise it's gonna snap. Slowly bend that plant up, support it on the underside so it doesn't wanna bend back. And over time, as this plant grows, it's going to grow straight up to the sun, not on an angle, but straight up. And that allows us to grow, like with this plant here, this whole plant is gonna get buried rather than just dig a super crazy deep hole. We're actually fairly shallow. We're probably within 4 to 5 inches of the top of the soil rather than like 8 to 10 inches deep. And so that allows us to not dig as deep of a hole. It's gonna have more access to nutrients. It's gonna have more access to that water, and the roots are gonna go down. So you're gonna have a huge linear plant in the soil. And this has given us the craziest yields ever. Now, I will say that when you do this, you gotta have a nice tall lanky plant. It's really hard to do this with a smaller seedling. So that's why a lot of times, if you've got a smaller seedling, just bury it deep like I did here, and you're gonna be fine. But with a tall seedling like this, you're gonna have the most amazing benefits from burying the whole plant in a trench. And like I said, it's game changing. So the next question I know you're probably asking is, well, Luke, how do you fertilize a plant like this? Well, we've already really re-amended this soil, so we don't have to fertilize. But if you have to fertilize a plant, you typically are going to fertilize the root ball, right? So in a plant like this that's buried deep, you're going to maybe add that fertilizer right to the planting hole, so the roots come right in contact with it. If you plant a plant right at the surface like that, you might come back, you might use the fertilizer in the hole, or you might use top dressing. That's where you sprinkle the fertilizer right around the root ball, give it a good scratch in and water it in, and that's gonna be great. But a plant like this, where the root ball is over here and the top of the plant is over here, what do you actually fertilize? Well, this is where it gets even better. You then take a line like this. You draw your line about 4 to 5 inches away from where the stem is. You don't wanna fertilize right on the stem. What you wanna do is you wanna encourage root teasing. Now this sounds, get your mind out of the gutter. You want to tease those roots. You want to tease them because what you're doing is you're basically dangling a carrot in front of the roots, saying just grow just a little bit further, grow a little bit further, because those roots have one job. Well, 2 jobs technically. That's to go find water and find nutrients. And so what you don't want to do is you don't want to fertilize right on that stem. You want to fertilize about 4 to 5 inches off that stem in a trench as well. You're going to sprinkle your fertilizer down that trench, cover it up, water it in well. And what that's going to do is going to encourage those roots to go find those nutrients, further expanding that root system of the plant, and you're going to have the biggest, the best, the healthiest, most productive tomatoes you've literally ever seen. I guarantee it. I'd recommend trying it. Like I said, we've used this for years and years and years, and it has just always done so well for us, never failed us. So I want you guys to try this if possible, because you're really gonna love the results. One word of caution when you're staking up your tomato plants: be careful of the stem. Now the root ball, if you happen to hit the root ball, it's not great. It's definitely gonna damage some roots. It's definitely gonna stress the plant out. If you hit the stem with a big stake like this, that's why you can absolutely put your stakes in before you plant your tomato plants. The thing is, once you lay them down, you don't really know. In my experience, it's kind of hard to know exactly where that tomato plant is going to naturally bend, because you don't want to overbend it, otherwise it snaps. So you don't want to force it into a spot here where you have your trellis. So just make sure you're putting your trellis about 5 to 6 inches away from the base of that tomato plant, because as the tomato plant grows, it's going to, and we'll pound those in with a stake driver, but you don't want to put your stake so close to your plant. Otherwise, if it hits the stem, the tomato plant absolutely will get snapped and will definitely die. Well, not definitely, it might send out some more roots if you keep it really well watered, but it's not gonna do well. Definitely avoid it. Just be really careful putting your stakes in, because your stem is so prone to snapping. Whereas your roots, if you were to put it too close and hit the root ball, it might cut some roots, it might damage some roots. It's not gonna break the stem because the stem is going straight up. So there's really nothing to break, but just be super careful with that. And then the final thing I'll tell you is when you water, make sure you water the whole stem. Really make sure you soak that area, because what you don't want is you don't want to spot water, because the plant will only form roots where there's adequate water. So what you want to do is, again, when you water, don't water right where the plant is. Water where you have the root ball and the rest of the stem. That's what you're trying to encourage. So just keep that in mind. It's a little bit different. Once you get that through your head that the roots are in a different place than where the stem's coming out, kind of warps the mind a little bit at first, but once you get used to it, it is such a great method. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you all learned something new. If you did, make sure to hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. And if you've used this method in the past, let me know how it's worked for you in the comments box. I'd definitely love to know. So as always, this is Luke from the MIgardener channel, reminding you to grow bigger. Take care. Bye. Hey, thank you so much for watching today's video. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed, consider checking this one out. You'll probably enjoy it just as much. I want to thank you so much for your viewership, because without it, this channel would not be as amazing as it is. If you haven't subscribed yet, it's free. Consider doing that. We upload every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, rain or shine. And if you need any garden tools, supplies, or seeds, check out MIgardener.com. We got you covered. See you guys in the garden. Bye.